Alright, guys, welcome back to the podcast, back to Tomboy Official. I am recording this mini series about, the state of, or my experiences with residing with housemates, roommates, in the past, or people I've lived with. I'm not like sharing their names and stuff, but just experiences of what it's like living in households with, housemates, roommates, queer as a queer person of color. Most of my experiences have been in LA and in San Diego. And so the previous one I recorded about was in grad school when I was in LA, kind of living in like El Sereno area. And then I think the next place I lived after that, like, I'm not going to record too much about what it was like living back at home when I was finishing up that school program. There wasn't really a lot to say because I was at school all the time and studying all the time. So I remember being at school studying, and I think I would just commute and I would stay there pretty long and try to drive back after traffic. So I would stay and study and get as much work done as I could and come back. But I do remember that becoming very draining. And I remember my family, I think I was no longer playing soccer on Sundays. So I used to play soccer on Sundays. And I remember I was no longer playing soccer on Sundays at that point. I think I had started going to a different church. It was like a Messianic Jewish church or something, I think. I think I went there for like a year. So maybe like my second year of grad school. I really can't recall. It was either my first year or second year of grad school. But I feel like it was my second year of grad school because I would have lived at the house down the street from that congregation in a different part of LA that was not El Sereno. So I was living with my family, the family that I'm living with now, like the same family of my parents. But I don't remember anything significant. I just remember being out all the time. When I had free time to hang out, I would go out, or I would hang out with people from my cohort, and I would just arrange my schedule to stay on campus as long as possible. But I don't remember there being any issues with like feeling like I needed more space, having privacy, nothing like that. Like, I remember my parents were working. My dad was working at a state. That was like his, let me see, I think he started working at a state in like 2003 or something. So that would have been like his fourth or fifth year working out of state. And so because he was working out of state, like, I didn't really see him all the time. Like, sometimes he'd be home every weekend. Sometimes he'd be home like once a month on a weekend. Sometimes he'd take a week off. Like, I don't really know his schedule, but like, I got used to just not seeing him every day. And then my mom was always at home, but she worked as well, like, not full time, but she was gone most of the day. And I stayed at home, and that was how I lived the next 2 years. It took me 3 years to finish my program, but I don't remember there being like specific issues with living at home. Just the fact that I had to drive and commute in LA traffic to and from about 30 miles each way, and that was a little bit much. It was a drain on my energy, but it was cheaper because I didn't have to pay rent. And then, yeah, I did that the first couple years, but I just remember arranging my schedule so that I would stay on campus longer And I developed really close friendships with people on campus, and was in this kind of a relationship with somebody. It wasn't like super, super intense though. It was, I don't know how to explain it. It was great, but it was like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, mm, positive, but I didn't really see myself at that time, like, trying to want to marry this person or anything like that. Like, I was like, this is great for now, but like, we weren't talking about the future. We didn't really talk about much, but we really got to know each other really well, but we didn't really talk much about like what's the future going to be like, what, where are we going with this. There was none of that. Like, after grad school, I think I ended up finishing a year earlier than the person I was dating, and they finished the year after me. And I think the year that they finished, they ended up having to move during that summer to San Francisco, and I ended up moving during that summer in August to San Diego. And so we moved like opposite directions. I moved 2 hours south, and they moved 8 hours north. And so we were like so far apart in distance that we just, things didn't really continue as they were, but we've always still had like a good friendship after everything, like we still are good friends. But yeah, I didn't know what was going to happen. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to go do this program 4 or 5 years, but come back every single weekend. That's what I thought was going to happen when I moved to San Diego. And I was like, I'm going to do this program 4 or 5 years, get at it, get my doctorate, and I'll be back, and I'll be back every weekend, because I thought I was going to stay going to church all the time. And so I thought I'd be back every weekend. And I wasn't. After like the first year, I stopped coming back every weekend. And so me and this person, when they were in town, we didn't really see each other much. I didn't really see them much. They didn't really see me much. We talked, but we didn't really see each other much. And it was fine. Because I was so busy, and they were dealing with family stuff. And I was just swamped. And so I didn't really know what to do. I didn't really know what to do with things at that point, but I wasn't like distraught over it. Like, there was no drama. It was fine, but I was still staying at home until that August when I moved down to San Diego. And then, yeah, so I don't remember having any real issues other than being like pretty drained from the driving, to and from like near downtown. That's where my school was. And so, other than the driving, I don't really remember there being too much. I remember being overwhelmed and kind of grumpy all the time. I was probably depressed. I don't really know, but I remember I would wake up at like 6:20, 6:30 every morning. And I had to leave ridiculously early in the morning, because if I didn't leave early, I would hit traffic. And I think I left at like 6:20 or something if I had an 8 o'clock class. No, maybe I'm thinking about when I went to Irvine. No, so this wasn't grad school. So I wasn't leaving that early to go to school, when I was in grad school. And then when I was in San Diego, I really didn't have to leave too early because the traffic wasn't that bad, at all. And so the first housemate I had a room. He was a housemate. We shared a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. His bedroom was next to mine. He had a bathroom and shower in the master, that was his room. And I had just like a small room next to his, and it was furnished for the most part. It had a bed, a desk, and I rented from him, paid him rent. And I remember living I don't know what I remember. Um I remember being like pretty interactive with him, like at first. For maybe like the first, I think we lived together for 3 years, just about, I think. And for like the first year when we lived together, I think, I would have dinner eating on the couch, and he would be eating, watching sports usually, or maybe not even eating. And he was we lived like down the street from USD, and he would be eating, um, sometimes, or other times he was in like law school. And so back then, I think sometimes he would teach English. I think he recently had divorced, but when they were married, there was someone else living in the house. And I remember at first, I didn't meet this other person, but excuse me. I remember at first, I think the only issue that I kind of had sometimes was like let's talk first year. The only thing I really remember was, his kid would come over, and like he had his kid maybe half the week, and the wife lived down the street, and or ex-wife lived down the street and had the kid the other half the week. So there were like maybe 3 nights out of the week the child, who was like, I think when I first moved in, the kid was like 4 or 5 years old, and the kid would kind of like cry himself to sleep, crying like, I want mommy, like crying and stuff. But he was a little child, and like I was like, oh, this is sad, but like I think it's like, because he doesn't understand what's going on. Like, his parents just got divorced, and I wasn't involved in it. Like, I think he told me that him and the wife just got divorced, but it seemed like it was still pretty raw because they were still having fights and stuff. And so at a certain point, he got pretty depressed. He was gonna take the bar. I don't think he did. I remember him and the kid used to watch sports a lot, and then they would play video games till kind of late at night. And I remember I would try to sleep at like 9, 10 o'clock, and they'd be up till probably 11:30 playing video games. And that was the only thing that kind of annoyed me, was like every night they were up late, and I'm such a light sleeper. Everybody knows I have so much trouble sleeping as it is. And so I remember I got like this little fan, and I used to sleep with the fan on just to drown out the noise, and that helped significantly. So I didn't really have to do much. I just turned on that loud fan, and I remember when it would get cold, I would face the fan, like during the cold seasons, I would face the fan away from me, like away from facing towards my bed. I would face it towards the wall, and then I would just have the fan on, and like I couldn't really feel it, or I would face it like towards the ground. It was a little fan. It was like it looked like it was a black fan, a little dome, and it was like on the floor almost. It had a little stand, and it kind of you could face it like upward or downward pretty much, and then you would just turn it towards whichever direction. So I remember I could face it downward, and then like facing like away from me, and then I didn't really feel the air if it was actually cold and I needed like more warmth. But yeah, drowned out the noise perfectly enough that I would just sleep every night, and then it really didn't become an issue that they would go to bed late. My bedroom, both of our bedrooms, the windows to our bedrooms were facing the back wall, like the back, not garage, what do you call it? The parking lot. So in the mornings when people started getting ready for work, it would be noisy. Some people had motorcycles. There'd be some kids that would always be out there crying, not wanting to go to school, and parents screaming at their kids to get in the car, and like people starting their cars and like letting the cars warm up and stuff. So that would kind of wake me up in the morning. So I couldn't really sleep in. And then I remember, during the hot parts of the year, there were certain times of the year where you could see, I think during summers, SeaWorld or something like that does fireworks at night. So I could see the fireworks from my window. My window faced where the fireworks were, but that's also where the sun would set. And so when it would get hot, the sun would set, and the light would be like shining bright in my room from the sun, and it would heat up my room a lot. So I remember sometimes I felt like there's not like a lot of privacy because I had to keep my door kind of open. And I kind of like my door closed. Like when I'm the kind of person when I'm in my room, I like if there's other people in the house, I like having my door closed. Um, but I used to keep my door open. Like when I would leave the house, I would keep my door open, you know. Um, I would just open my room door and just keep it open, and I didn't really mind doing that. Like I didn't really need privacy in that way. I kind of just kept my door open, and then I was kind of fine with my door being just like open at night. Not at night, like in the day. Um like when I was gone, like I'd be at school, and that's why I first moved to San Diego, was for school, and I was a full-time student. And so I was at school most of the day. So when it would get hot, I remember I started staying at school a little bit longer because I was like, I don't really like being in the apartment, having to keep my door a little bit open, you know, because I would open the window, but for airflow, I would open the door because we always had like this, the sliding door on our balcony was like directly down the hall straight across from my, like opposite from my bedroom window if I would have had my door open, if that makes sense. Like you could look down the hall from my bedroom window and see like the sliding door pretty much. So like there was a cross breeze if I kept my, if I kept my door actually open, and the window open. And so I remember that was a solution, and it wasn't all year that it was like that. It was just a little while, like during the summer and during certain hours of the day when the sun was setting. So like it wasn't all the time, but it was like often enough that like it became a little bit like, for me, I was like, I need a little bit more privacy on this. Cause when people were in the living room, they were always like in the living room watching like movies, playing video games, stuff like that. So I kind of, just kind of needed a little bit of space on that. But I mean, me and this guy got along really good, and so I didn't really mind if he would like walk past and I'm at my desk studying or something. It wasn't like that, but like I still don't really like having the door open and stuff when I'm like doing anything. It just throws my focus off. I can't study like that anyways. Like if I'm at a library, coffee shop, I can study just fine. It's not a problem if there's people like necessarily around me. It's not the people being around me. It's just when I'm in my own personal space, I don't like having my doors open too much. So me and him got along pretty good. It was just those two little things, and I never really like spoke up to him about any of it. And he did tell me, because I remember before I moved in, like, what's the situation, like, is there anything about the house that I should know that's maybe like uncomfortable or anything like that. And he did tell me that that room gets a little bit hot. I remember him saying that, but when I had moved in, it wasn't like that. But I do remember it getting a little hot. But it wasn't like bad, and it wasn't all year. So, I mean, we had heating in the house, and that was fine. And like, I mean, he didn't really wash dishes too much. He would let the dishes pile up, and his kid like had this little toy box area with little like buckets to put his toys, and the kids' toys were always on like one half of the living room, and just the living room was just destroyed. And then when the housemate him and his wife started having some weird problems where I think it affected his work at school. I don't really know, but he seemed like he got pretty depressed. But it never came back on me. I just noticed that like he started smoking cigarettes again. I never said anything about that, but I was like, oh. And I remember once being in the living room or in the kitchen at the table, because I would get like so into my little techie projects, and I remember like being in my room for a couple of days. I had been researching like hacking, like hardware hacks or something like that. Like that's what it's called. Like when you want to like take something and not hack into it, but like there was a certain cable, like, say for example, if I wanted to like adapt like an HDMI cable to like a lightning cable, like something like that, like make an adapter, like that would be like a hardware hack. Like if they don't already have one that you can buy, or you can learn how to like rewire the cabling in certain kind of cords. Like I was kind of learning about that. I don't even know if that's possible to do HDMI to lightning, but like anyways, it probably is. But I mean, I was learning about that, and I remember taking it to my room, to the living room, like the dining room area, and then he comes over and he's kind of like playfully, just like sarcastically, like, oh, what's that? What are you looking at? Kind of thing. And he kind of like looked over my shoulder. He's like, oh, hacking? Like none of that allowed in here. Like there's none of that allowed in this house, And I was just like a little annoyed, because at first I was a little annoyed mostly because I was like, to have him think that that's what I was actually doing, that I was actually trying to like hack, like steal somebody's stuff or do something illegal or do something like wrong. That is what kind of offended me. Like, I guess I was a little hurt by it, because I was just like, wow, I can't believe he thinks that I would actually like do some kind of like cyber crime against him, or whatever, like just the way he said it. And then I was like, nah, it's not what it is, but then I was a little offended and didn't really want to explain exactly what I was doing, because I was like, this is my own business of what I'm just learning like random techie stuff, like, and just wanted to do it in another space. And I didn't like mention that to him, but I do remember kind of like closing my computer and going into my room and just being like, I didn't really like explain to him like, no, that's not what I'm doing. I told him that's not what I'm doing. It's not like that at all. That's not actually what this is. Like, it's nothing like that. And like, but I didn't explain the details like I explained about like the cables and all this kind of stuff I was trying to learn about. Because first I was like, I feel like it's none of his business. And then like, for him to be looking at my computer and stuff, because it wasn't facing him, he had to like come over and like look at my screen to see what I was doing. And I was kind of like, okay, it was a little intrusive to me. I was kind of like, so I remember never really being on the computer in like an open space after that. I was kind of like, okay, like that's a little, like, I don't know, it wasn't a big deal, but it was just kind of like, it was little things. Like these are like little things, right? And I'm just mentioning them because like, I know a lot of people are having to move in with people, and sometimes there's little stuff where I look back and I'm like, okay, like I could have addressed it, I could have told him the details and explained what I was learning, but also I was like, it felt like a little slight bit of an invasion of privacy, because this is my computer. It's like my personal laptop. I'm sitting there on it. It's almost like if somebody's Googling something on their phone, you don't just like go over and like look inside their phone or whatever. It's kind of like you ask, like, what are you looking at? Or like, what are you doing on your computer? Like I wasn't studying. I was studying my own thing, but it had nothing to do with my school. And I was just having fun. Maybe I was on a break. I don't even remember, honestly, but I just wanted to use my brain differently. And I used to do stuff like that back then. I was very like techie. And yeah, I remember, I had felt a little bit offended by that. I remember that. But other than, like, we didn't have a lot of interactions where I was like hurt or like offended, or like, that was one of the few times I remember. And I was just kind of like, I don't remember ever really using the computer in a public space other than that. Well, when he was home. And then he eventually left and moved for like 3 months or something. He went and was living in Vietnam teaching English. He'd done it before, but he just was having issues with his ex, and I guess she was trying to have a custody battle against him or something. It sounded like some nasty thing. And I remember him telling me about it a little bit. Like, I don't remember what he said, but he said something like, I don't remember what he said to me. but he said something about her. He was saying something like, she wants to argue with me all the time. Maybe he told me what she said or something, and I was like, I kind of snickered a little bit, and he's like, I guess it is funny, you know, and I was like, because I could tell I kind of hurt his feelings. Like, it was just like an instant kind of nervous reaction. Like, we didn't really talk like that too much. Like, we talked about sports and stuff, and so it was kind of like odd for me when he was just like all of a sudden talking about his relationship issues, and I was just like, I didn't even know that he was having them. I didn't really know what was going on in his life. So maybe it was like nervous laughter, just kind of like, it was a little uncomfortable, and like, you know, like when I don't talk to people a lot, like I gotta get used to people, you know, so it was, especially back then, like it was really hard for me to just like talk to people about their relationships and all kinds of stuff. Like I was like, you know, this is like beyond me, like talking about divorce issues. Like this is something I've never really had to like experience. So for me, it was like a little awkward living with somebody who's just like openly talking about some fight that he just had with his ex-wife. And I'm just kind of like, and he was like upset with it, but I was like, I didn't know what to say or do. And so I kind of snickered a little bit. And I remember him being like, oh, I guess it is funny. And then I realized, I was like, shoot, like, I didn't mean to like hurt his feelings. Like I didn't mean to be like a jerk, like, because I would want to be supportive. But then I remember him being like, you know, and I was just kind of like trying to explain to myself, like I didn't really realize it was kind of like nervous laughter, but I was just kind of like, no, like she's just, I was like, I think I said like, I'm not laughing at you, it's just that she's acting like a kid, you know, like I think because she called him childish or something, and I was like, she's acting like a child or something like that, like, you know, something like to try to take his side a little bit, but like the conversation didn't go much more than that, and I don't remember him really bringing it up more. And I just remember at some part in the timeline he started smoking cigarettes, and it kind of bothered me a little bit because I'm not a cigarette smoker, but he didn't really smoke it in the house, but he smoked it out on the balcony, and that's still, in a small apartment, you can still tell when somebody's smoking, right? So it's like, it wasn't that discreet of a thing. And I remember he kind of talked to me about it. Like, I guess he'd stopped smoking for a pretty long time. Like, when I first met him, I never knew that he had smoked. And so it was not obvious at all. And so, yeah, there was that. And then he left when him and that ex, he didn't like leave, but he temporarily left for like 3 months, moved to Vietnam to teach English. So I think he wasn't finishing his school to take the bar. I think he studied really hard, never took his exam. I think he told me, because I remember asking him after, how's the exam? Like, how'd it go? And then he never said anything. But I remember he would leave, like before he left to Vietnam, or maybe after he came back. I remember I would play guitar, because like I could see when he would pull his car into park. So I remember looking, you know, out my bedroom window to see if he had parked. And he came home at a certain time of day or evening, and so I remember he would come home and I would play guitar until then. And then after a certain point, I kind of like didn't care, and I just would play like kind of more openly, like just play even though I knew he was home. But I remember I would like sing and play when I thought he wasn't home, and then I would just play mostly just like Metallica ballads like over and over again. And you know, he knew, like he would hear it, and I remember once he was like, "Oh, like those songs you're playing sound really nice," and he was like, "Yeah, I was in my room, but like I kept the door open so I could like hear you playing because I really liked the songs." And I was like, "Oh, that's nice," and I felt a little like odd. And then I didn't really say anything past that. And then I kind of stopped playing because I felt like just because he mentioned, like, even though it was a nice comment, I kind of didn't want anybody listening. Like, if he wouldn't have said anything, I probably would have just kept playing. But then I kind of like remember I kind of stopped playing when he was home. And like, not, it's just, I just like my space on that kind of thing. I don't know, like, and sometimes I've talked about this before, but when I play guitar, sometimes I like to just play the same thing over and over and over again. And it's like, I don't play for other people to hear me for them to like it. I play because I like the way I feel when I play it. And so when I play songs. And so sometimes if there's just some verse or some riff that just catches me, I'll just play it over and over again. And so it's like I don't really play in a style that like people want to hear me play, you know. Like I mean, I will play songs all the way through. I will, and I'll play like a whole medley sometimes. I'll make like when I'm playing, I'll do my own thing, but like I really don't like people listening to me play. Like it's kind of like I have to want them to listen. And I usually just like playing with other people, like with the band or with other people or recording and stuff like that. I don't really like playing solo for people to like watch me or listen to me play. And so I got a little uncomfortable, like not like deeply uncomfortable, but I was kind of like, I kind of like my space on this and kind of liked to do it alone without having to feel like pressure that like, oh, it has to sound good or like I can't mess up or like, for me, that kind of thing, I get a little bit of like performance anxiety and it's a little stressful for me. Like I have had bad experiences before playing like in front of churches and stuff and just like screwing up songs royally. And like, I still remember that kind of stuff. I'm like, dude, that was terrible. Like I always hated that. Like when it was just like, I didn't mind when we were like joking around and like I was with my friends playing for church and it was like a casual thing and we'd be goofing off and like, it would suck. It's like, whatever. But I mean, like, I used to hate playing, you know, when it was like we actually were trying hard and just like screwed it up. It's a little embarrassing to like mess up a performance in front of people. But sometimes I was just too stressed to practice and it showed. And so, you know, stuff like that where you just don't want to screw up, you know, but you do. And so because of that and just because I like to just play for myself, I've never really fully enjoyed other people listening to me play music too much. Like maybe a little bit if it's like one-on-one, but I really just don't like it. Like I'm not like a in front of people show kind of person. Like I really just like having my space on a lot of things. So I prefer having my space on that, and then, yeah, I didn't really play in front, I wasn't really playing in front of him, but, like, the apartment was so small, like, and I didn't want to play in front of him anymore, so, or in a way that he could hear me. I'm pretty sure he did overhear me sometimes, like, I don't really know, but, I kind of like a bit of distance, you know, like, with housemates and stuff. I kind of don't want them too involved all the time in the stuff that I like to do. And so stuff like that, it's like I kind of need people to be a little like, you know, I'm similar to like cats in that way. It's like, yeah, let me come to you. You can't be like too intrusive or else I will leave. Like, you know, I kind of got to warm up to a person and kind of know their intentions on stuff before I'm going to kind of like be more like open with them or more like involved and let them be more involved. Like usually I kind of keep a distance. That's just how I am. And especially if I'm living with people, I kind of really like my space. But it wasn't too bad with him. Like up until a certain point, I was still like eating in the kitchen and like cooking even when he was home. Like I wasn't like, I don't feel like I was doing too much like avoiding him up until I started having a lot of problems with my school situation. But I mean, like there was a 3-month or so period of time where a lady lived with me. There was a student who went to USD. She lived with me, and he told me she was moving in. I had never met her before, but he had screened her, talked to her, and it was a good fit for her. And I guess her mom had helped her move in one weekend when I was out of town. And this was the same apartment, but he was gone for 3 months, and he came back after that. So she moved when she had moved in. I remember she was like pretty blonde, but like I don't think I was like, I didn't have a crush on her or anything. And we would talk and stuff, and like we'd have a lot of good conversations. I liked having conversations with her after like classes and stuff, and we would talk and like we vibed really good. I really liked her as far as like she was clean and everything. Uh, but she mentioned like I remember the house was a wreck. Like when he left, he cleaned out I think the whole closet. He cleaned out his whole closet, put it in like a row of stuff like in the middle of the living room floor. And then on the other side of that row of stuff was all of his kids like toys that like I mentioned how the kids toys were always all over like half of the living room. Like he put the kids toys, he left them there. And like he was going through a lot. He basically fled cuz he thought that his wife was going to, you know, try to have some custody battle so that she could have the kid all the time or whatever, because she was mad at him about whatever wasn't working out. I don't know, I wasn't involved, but like he was hurt and didn't want to stay because like she had moved down the street. Once they got divorced, she had moved down the street, so it's not like she was far, and they would see each other around town a lot too, and it was his kid too, and they both had joint custody. But when she started wanting to have a custody battle and be nasty, and he was a good father, I'll be real about that. Like I don't think that, as far as what I knew when I saw him with the kid and stuff, like he loved his son so much. He would always tell me, and it was so awkward for me, but he would just be like, "Oh, I miss my son." Like all the time when his son was with the wife and not with at the house where we were, he would always be like, "I miss my son. I miss my son." I knew he loved that kid so much, and so like I was like, man, but at the same time, I'm like, dude, I'm busy, like doing my own thing. I'm in school, like I didn't really get involved with him on that, but he left, and because I think he was like, well, I'm not gonna take this to court. I'm just gonna say like she can. I think he told me this, that like he's like, I don't want it to go to court. I don't want it to be official. I just want, if she wants him, she can have him. I'm just gonna leave. And he was like, I'll contact you in like 3 months or something. And we had 3 months where he moved. This other blonde lady from USD moved in. And I remember, yeah, just his stuff was, I guess, like I'd never really been like in his room, I don't think. And I didn't know that like his bathroom and shower were like, there was like mold and mildew everywhere and stuff, and the tub and all that. And so like she told me, she was like I guess one weekend, because I would go to LA most often on weekends and stuff. And so I remember one weekend I was out of town and I came back and the house was cleaned like immaculately. And I think I used to even, when I would leave, I think I used to leave my bedroom door open. Like I mentioned, I used to just leave my door open. Like I was kind of like open with these first housemates I had. I would leave my door open. And that was my way of saying like, just like, like I didn't really have anything that I was like hiding. I didn't think that people were going to steal my stuff. Like I mentioned, like I've never had too much of value. It's always just been guitars and a laptop. Like I don't really keep that much stuff. But yeah, guitars. And I remember, yeah, when this lady moved in, we were like maybe similar age. I think she was in law school, but I can't recall her major. But we would talk a lot, and she was nice to have conversations with at night. And I remember she would eat really healthy, so I was kind of like maybe not too confident about my meals and stuff because I was eating like fast food all the time. And like, but we would talk and stuff, and like she was cool to talk to. And then like her and her mom, she mentioned that they had been scrubbing the shower and scrubbing the floors and like vacuuming the house, and like, they put up all the toys, they put up all of his stuff that was in the living room. I think maybe they had organized it, but I don't fully remember if they had. I just remember they put away the stuff that was there, but I really don't remember the exact details. I don't recall the exact details. Um, but yeah, that's one thing that I do recall. Um, and then, yeah, I don't remember the exact details. And then, like, I just remember she was nice to live with. There was only one time, I think, when I left, and I think she threw a party or something, or had friends over. And, because, like I said, when I would leave town, I would leave my bedroom open. And I remember coming home once, and there was, like, a trash, what do you call it? Like a paper bag, like, you know, those paper grocery bags? It was like a paper grocery bag next to my bed. Like, and I was like, I don't remember putting that there, but I was like, maybe I did. But it, like, had the sides kind of rolled down a little bit. And I was like, I would never do that. But I was like, well, maybe I did, or maybe they had a party and somebody was, like, in there and, like, put that in there or whatever. But I was like, I could tell somebody had touched my things. I think I had left my laptop there, and I can't remember if I felt like somebody had, like, touched my laptop or something, or if they did, if there was proof that they did, or if I felt like they had or something. I really just can't recall. But I remember in the bathroom, because she had her own bathroom, and I had my bathroom in the hallway, and I remember someone had used my toothpaste, because I remember I always put my cap on the toothpaste. The toothpaste was kind of like slightly oozed out of the tube, and the cap was off, and my hairbrush had, like, blonde hairs and stuff in it. And I was just like, somebody's been using my stuff, and somebody's been touching my things. And I was a little upset by it, but I didn't really say anything. And I can't remember if she told me before or after that she was having a party. And I just assumed that, like, maybe there were people at that party that slept over, and maybe someone had slept in my bed. Like, I feel like the bed was, like, made differently. Like, I don't know, there were, like, little things that I was like, I don't feel like they wrecked anything, but I was like, I'm not used to people touching my stuff, and I don't like it, and I didn't want that to happen. But I never said anything, but from that point on, I started, like, closing my door. And I remember she used to go in her bedroom, and she'd be, like, on her bed reading, or, like, just chilling in her room, and she would have her door, like, open. And I remember I would go when I was in my room, I would have my door closed. But I remember, yeah, she would have her door open. And then I remember when the other housemate came back, you know, I was starting to have some trouble in school around that time. Mostly because I was having trouble with a supervisor who was kind of, like, emotionally problematic, and because of that, it really was impacting my schoolwork as well, and everything was just getting, like, really intense. And I remember that roommate, the guy, moved back. She moved out. I think he told me at one point I could sell his stuff, because he left it in the living room. And I remember giving some of my friends, like, I think he had, like, a Louis Vuitton, like suitcase. I gave one or two of those to, like, one of my friend's sisters. And then, like, he had some video games. I let some friends come over, and he had some video games, and I let them use those have those games. And I remember he asked me to start his car once a week so the battery didn't die, but I didn't start the car because I didn't feel comfortable touching his car. And I remember, yeah, I had some friends sleep over. One night they stayed on the couch, but they wanted to stay a second night, but I remember I was so busy I didn't really want that. And then, yeah, so I don't know how long it was once that one lady moved out, because I feel like there was still a gap of time when there was still all that stuff in the living room. So he must not have been home yet. But I don't think she was living there, and maybe I was living there for a month by myself. I don't really remember. But he would leave, though, because he would leave town often for like a month at a time or something. He would be gone for like weeks at a time, and so it was pretty cool. I liked that he would be gone a lot, and so that was pretty cool for me that he would like leave town a lot. Um, so because I enjoyed that aspect of things, like yeah, I felt maybe a little crowded because it was a small space, but mostly the issue for me started happening when I started having problems like with the school program and things just weren't going too well. That was mostly when I started to do things a little bit differently, and it was about at that time that I started to, like come straight home from school, just like kick my shoes off at the door because we didn't wear shoes in the house, and then I would just go like straight to my room pretty much. And then, there was a certain point where he was like, I guess he thought it was him, and he was like, because he noticed like I had changed, with like I used to interact with him almost daily. I would come home from school and just like stand by the door, kind of check in, get the play by play of my day. Like we would like talk about our days and stuff. And like there was a certain point where I just started coming home from school and I was just like isolating myself and not really wanting to talk. And I would just go straight to my room, and he was just kind of like, yeah, if there's anything I did, or if you ever need to like talk or anything, like I'm here. And I was just like, oh yeah, thanks, like I appreciated him saying that, and I was like, it was helpful for him to say that, and I was just like, yeah, thank you. And I kind of explained like, like, school's not going too good, and I'm just stressed, and like, but he'd never seen that side of me before. Like when I get stressed, I kind of just like to stay to myself, and so I would do that like often. It was like weeks upon weeks. I would just come home and just never talk, never talk. I didn't cook dinner anymore. Like I think I started having alcohol. It wasn't a lot, but I remember that was the first time I started actually buying cider, keeping it in the fridge, and I'd probably have one a night or so, maybe two at a certain time. I was having one or two. And maybe he noticed that. But I would start drinking at night, like in my room, just by myself, just like one or two. Angry Orchards. It was always Angry Orchards. And then I would usually eat fast food for dinner. And so on my way home from class or whatever, I would grab like whatever fast food was near me, and then, grab a beer, go to my room, and then I guess I was studying still. I don't remember. Like this is like a weird timeline. I don't really remember. But I do remember I started like isolating from him a little bit more. And it wasn't, I don't think he had really done anything to me. Like we always got along. Me and him always got along good. Like there was never any real issue, but I do remember that. I do remember being like not wanting to talk, not really wanting to be open with him about like my situation. And at a certain point I moved for one, I don't know if we were semester or quarter, but one term of school I moved onto campus. So I'll talk about that experience next, because I did move back in with him after that. But I wasn't there long after, but I was there for like one more term after. But yeah, I'll talk about what it was like living on campus. That was a whole different experience. I had a little bit more privacy because I was an RA and I had my own like dorm room. But or my dorm suite or whatever you want to call it. But I'll talk about that next. But yeah, me and him always got along good. But I do remember once I started feeling kind of like bummed out all the time and just not doing good with like my performance was sucking, because I think I was just mostly having emotional issues because of that supervisor. But it really was affecting my work, and I don't think I really put two and two together. Like I didn't really notice what it was. I just thought like, man, I don't have any energy anymore. And I remember when I would go to sleep, I would start feeling like I wasn't even rested. Like I didn't even feel rested. I felt like when I went to sleep, I wasn't even like rested fully good. and I would wake up and just not feel good. I felt like, how when you sleep and take like midday, you like take like a weird little nap, but it's not like a nap that's significant enough to like give you full rest, but you wake up too early from even a nap, but you're already exhausted, and then you wake up. That's kind of how it felt. It was like, but I don't think I noticed that it was like the alcohol that was probably screwing up my sleep cycles, because I know that now. That's why I don't like drinking, because I don't sleep well, and then I always don't feel good the next morning. And so even if I just drink like one beer or one Corona or something, like I'll still not feel too good the next day. Like not even a full hangover, but just I know it affects my sleep. It makes me have poor sleep, and so I didn't know that then, and I think I noticed that drinking helped me fall asleep and it helped me unwind. But I don't know how I noticed that. Like, and I think I only started drinking cider because like I used to watch these Amish documentaries or something where like they were talking about how they really like cider, and so that was how come I started trying cider, because I was like, well, I want to have cider too, and I did like the flavor of cider. I still do, but I really like cider. It just tastes like freaking cider, like so I like it too. But I mean, like, yeah, I was really kind of not doing too well that period of my life, and so I started like isolating from him. And he did. I'm kind of grateful that he did mention it, because I was like, he did kind of. It wasn't him though. It wasn't anything he had done, and I hope he kind of knew that it wasn't him. It was just. It was hard for me to like live with somebody, and like I didn't want to unload on him about what was going on, because I don't think I even really knew what was going on, because I was working so much in school that it was just hard for me to wrap my head around the problem fully. I wasn't reflecting on it. I wasn't trying to process it. I was just trying to power through. And obviously I cannot do things that way, but I mean, most people can't, but I thought I could. And I didn't really know better. Like I never had an experience with some like crazy abusive, like superior person that was in like a work or school environment. Like I've had family members like that, but I've never had like people that were like, you can end my career here. And like she was almost like she would make statements and comments that made me feel like she was kind of gonna make things worse for me, or like she would say things like, oh, you're really not too good at this, or like, I don't see you trying hard enough, or you really don't, you seem to have a lot of good awareness about like the things that you're poor at, and things like, she would just say stuff, but she wasn't like trying to be helpful or kind about it. Like you can kind of tell when somebody's like calling something to your attention. Like she would just be like overly editing my work on like everything, and I would just be questioning everything. I'd be like, what the fuck, am I really this bad? And I'm just thinking like, how did I get this far? Like she would tell me things like you're in grad school, don't you know that you're supposed to put 2 spaces after a period? And I mean, I think it depends on the style that you're using with the like what format you're writing in. Is it like APA, MLA? Like what are you using? Chicago? Like what is it? I think that determines those things. But there was a point where I used to always put 2 spaces, and then I started just putting 1, and she would get on me about stuff like that. Like, no, don't put this many spaces after a period, put this many instead. And she'd make me go back through like a whole 30-page something document and change like the period spacing, or she'd be like, I think she got on me because of like, when you have a list of things, it's like the client said they wanted to talk to their mother, father, and sister. So I put like mother, comma, father, comma, and sister, or whatever, or mother, comma, father, and sister, without the comma after the second thing in the list of 3 or whatever. And she was like, English isn't even my first language, like, and I know, that you're supposed to put an extra comma. And I was just like, I don't think you have to put an extra comma there, but it would just be like stuff like that. That's like, really? Like, this isn't even an issue, you know? And like, we would do that every single week, at least once a week. She would call me into her office and just be in there like yelling at me about like these types of things. It's like, I would sit there, and one day I remember she was sitting there like making me edit things. She pulled up a chair next to my desk and was just like waiting for me. And she was like, why are you taking so long? And I'm just like, because she didn't understand. We had to edit everything in these little tiny small boxes. It would be like this massive report, but the boxes where you had to write things were so like small that you can only see like 4 or 5 lines at a time. So you'd have to scroll. Like, imagine trying to scroll like 20 pages into something that somebody wants you to edit, and you're like scrolling down this tiny box. Like, how the hell am I supposed to fix this fast? Like, I have to count the paragraphs down the thing, it would be stuff like that. And I'm just like, I spent almost a whole year with this fucking lady, and I was just like, every time I was like, just count down, I'm almost done. But like, every single thing she could find to complain, she complained. And I just became just like, literally, I just was like numbed out all day, like not on anything, but I literally was like, that's how I got through it, is I just found out how to feel numb, and I felt nothing. I was just like, I would go in there, and she would always say things like, you're so hard to read. You're so hard to read. Because she didn't know if she was like upsetting me or not, and she needed me to be upset. I could kind of tell that. And once I noticed that like she needed me to be upset for her to like feel like she got her day's worth or whatever, like once I kind of realized that, I was like, oh, well, if I just give you no emotion, then you will stop, because you don't know how to, deal with me when I'm not seeming angry or seeming upset or seeming sad. Like, if I'm just seeming like nothing, then you'll just back off. And so I just kind of learned to just, I've done that before, because I've been around narcissistic assholes before, and that's kind of what they need from you, is if you give them nothing, they can't feed off of it. And so once I realized that's kind of what was going on, but then like being in like that numb state when I was pretty fearful of her, and like, like I felt pretty threatened by her, but also she kind of couldn't do anything. And so from that point, she started saying things to me like, oh, like she'd call me like sweetie, and like not like in a sexual weird way, but she'd just be like, oh, like you're so sweet. And like she kind of changed her tone and started being like nice to me. But I still gave her nothing after that. I was like, I'm not going to smile. I'm not going to, I was just like blank, but like almost looking like I was like almost happy, not happy, but like I didn't look happy. I didn't look sad. I just looked kind of like, just, I don't know how else to explain it. Just not fully full of emotion at all. And when she noticed that about me, she started acting nicer and saying kinder things to me. And I knew it was bullshit, because how she was treating me before. So I didn't really react to that either. And then she kept getting a little like, I can't really tell if you're like, how are you today? Like, she was getting really kind of like, it threw her off. Like, I noticed like the way that I was being threw her off. Like, she didn't get like more upset. She actually got nicer, and like it threw her off. And so I was like, okay, I see what's going on here. Like, you have a fucking problem, like, for real, for real. But, yeah, like, having to deal with that, it fucked me up, And then I would go home, like, every day to this housemate who was, like, concerned, because, like, he didn't say, he didn't know what was going on. I never told him. I didn't tell anybody for a really long time. But, like, yeah, like, I remember just kind of telling him just a little vague bit of information, like I mentioned. I was like, oh yeah, like, like I'm stressed about school or whatever. Like, I didn't really explain like all of that to him. But it was really nice that he was concerned and that he noticed. And I had other people in my cohort at that time period when I was living with him that I could like talk to a little bit, where I was just like, once I started realizing how she was with other people, and I found out that she had previously been fired because of how she treats people, and then when I noticed that even the full-time staff that were like a little older than us, because I was like in my late 20s and they were maybe in their mid 30s and they were like fearful of her, like of interacting with her, then I'm like, okay, she's like this to everybody. She's just a bitch, you know? And like once I started realizing that, I was like, I felt a little bit better, you know? But by that time I had moved onto campus, I think. And then I moved back in with that housemate near USD. So I'm going to talk about that, and we'll see if I post the daily update. If I have one, I'll post it after that. I'll post it, tag it on to the end of this episode. All right. Today is April 28th, 2023. I'm about to head to the beach. I'm trying to carefully back out of my driveway first. Got some pedestrians. Let me not run into the pedestrians. Okay. Man, it is beautiful out. Man, oh man, it is beautiful out. The sun just got to shining at about 10:20 a.m. or so today. And so I decided to kind of venture out and get myself out of the house early. So I don't know where I left off yesterday, but I think maybe it was around noon. I don't remember where I left off with recording about yesterday, honestly. But, yeah. So, as far as yesterday was concerned, I didn't sleep very good at all the night before. And so I was so thrown the whole day. I didn't really get too much done. But later in the day, I did podcasting, and then after that, later in the day, I got into a little bit more detailed self-care, I guess. So, you know, people who follow me, they know that, like, I've got this whole fun thing that I do. I call it Weed Wednesdays. And then I have Therapeutic Thursdays. But, I vaped Wednesday, and I was like, okay, like, that was fine. But that's kind of all I did. And then, so I decided Thursday, because I hadn't had edibles in a while, and the edibles I was having were these ProTab Indica edibles. And so I do kind of like having hybrids, if that makes sense. Like, because, they don't make me so mellowed out. I mean, I'm still not productive. Like, I wasn't very productive because I took so much. But basically, I'll get to that portion of yesterday. But yeah, I wasn't feeling like perfect. Like, I had a rough night the night before. Like I mentioned, I think I kind of like dredged up something that, I just wasn't ready for, and I didn't really have my mental space kind of clear enough to kind of deal with it, and then it affected my sleep, and then I woke up and just felt like I just couldn't get it together yesterday. Like, Thursday was like a non day for me, like, and so I basically was just taking it easy, kind of trying to schedule out what I need to do. Definitely worked on the podcasting and stuff, and some of the podcasting had to do with some of the stuff I've been studying, and so I kind of threw the topics into there like that. And then so that was, I don't know what day that was, that was yesterday. And then In the afternoon, you know, around my lunch break, so I took my lunch break. I wrote down the times, but I'm driving right now, so I can't look at it. But my siesta time was like from about noon. Like I started prepping lunch right before noon, and then from about that time, let's call it like 11:50ish, until, you know, I started uploading the podcast stuff around that time, and then around like noon, afternoon, I basically, you know, lounged. So for yesterday's breakfast, I had like maybe half a bowl of oats and half, like, I think I had a cup of cacao, and then I had like like later on, like with my lunch, I had like a half a cup of coffee. I drink this Four Sigmatic coffee with mushrooms. I think it's got chaga and lion's mane. I don't know if it has other mushrooms in there, but you can get it at Sprouts. I get the packets because it's just like a single cup, and then it's 50 milligrams worth of caffeine per packet, and I think they also have like the ground as well, but I don't get the ground. And so there's that, and then I basically went from there to like from the coffee to like around lunch time to just like relaxing. So I was watching stuff at lunch. Dang, it's not going to be sunny at the beach. The marine layer's still here. It's still cloudy out. Dude, that's crazy. But yeah, I had a little bit of that, and I don't know if it really kicked in, if it really helped. But like I mentioned, you know, like even I think it was the day before or the day before that, maybe it was like Monday, I think I went to the gym, or Tuesday or something like that, and I noticed that I was kind of like stressed a little bit, like kind of a little bit of a struggle with my energy, even when I had C4 that day. And it was kind of the same thing yesterday. Like I was a little surprised that even though I had coffee for lunch to attempt a little bit of a pick-me-up, it didn't really work so successfully as I thought it would. Like I really wasn't as energetic as I had planned to be. Dude, the road is blocked. It's not blocked. I thought it was blocked. I thought I saw caution tape, and I couldn't see that it wasn't going all across the lane that I was trying to turn into, so I missed my turn. But yeah, I basically was trying to just have a pretty, you know, balanced day. It was just a challenge, you know, and you know, that's what happens, you know, if you can't sleep and stuff, like you can only expect so much. And I feel like it's been multiple days where my sleep was poor, multiple consecutive days from before yesterday, when my sleep was pretty poor. And so because it was multiple days like that, it just all added up, in all honesty. And so yeah, I wasn't really feeling like my best, but I kind of paced myself. Like I did want to like push, you know. I was telling one of my friends, I was like, yeah, like usually I'm like, I'm gonna push, and like, you know, but I'm like, you know, I'm trying to like listen to my body, listen to my mind, get better at that, and not just like run myself completely ragged just because I can. And so I decided to not push that hard past lunch, and rested during lunch, watched the show. I'm still watching Freaks and Geeks, watched some of that, and then got into the show that I've been wanting to watch, but I hadn't really started it till yesterday. And it's on Netflix. It's think it's called Your Rich Life or Start Your Rich Life or something like that. And then so it's kind of chill, and I think that's the name of it. And I know a lot of people I understand the clickbaity kind of stuff. There's clickbaity kind of stuff, like, so when you hear something like, oh, get rich or something, like, usually we all know, like, that's not what this is about. But, I gave it a chance because I was like, it is like this whole entire series, and, I didn't want to just fully write off the whole entire thing. Because I was like, I don't think Netflix is gonna really, like, do us like that and be like not letting us go through, like, I was feeling like Netflix isn't gonna just make us get exposed to something that's just completely like hogwash kind of stuff. And so I was like, okay, I'll trust it because it's on here, and like usually clickbait stuff and all that, like, that's more of like a YouTube kind of thing. And there's usually not that much stuff related to finance on like Netflix. Like, Netflix isn't really like you don't really go to Netflix for your finance advice. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what it's there for. And so I was like, well, let me give this show a chance, because I was like, let me just trust it a little, because, like, it might not be that bad, And I'm glad I kind of took that approach, because I was like, it really wasn't that bad. And so I just decided, I'll trust it. It's probably not going to be terrible. So I watched quite a few episodes of that because I felt like it was productive to watch. So I kind of liked that they had this topic called financial, I don't know if it was called financial psychology. I can't remember the exact terminology, but basically it was to the tune of, the psychological aspect of kind of what's actually going on with these people. And I did appreciate that. I did like that. I was like, that's something that I think most people are actually needing. And so I did like and appreciate that. And, for me, it was nice. I was like, okay, this is great. It's kind of like nice to kind of see, And so I kind of left it at that. And it was pretty nice. Hopeful to see a nice. But it kind of got the gears turning a little bit. So I feel like it was, if I was gonna just kind of veg a bit, that was productive. And then I was like, well, let me go to the beach, and then go get my I didn't know what I was gonna do, but I was like, let me just get out of the house, because I got like a bit of an uptick of energy around like 2 yesterday. Well, no, it was after that, like around 3 something, but around 2 something I started feeling a little drowsy. I remember getting a little tired and wanting to nap, and I was like, I'll give myself like 20-30 minutes. But then when I got up to go have a bathroom break, by the time I got back, I was like, I didn't really feel like as drowsy, like I wasn't like literally drifting off. And so I pushed it a little bit, and then kind of got a little bit of a second wind. So that was nice. And then so after having that kind of like second wind, I proceeded to kind of get going. with my day and or my evening, and you know, ended up going over to the dispensary because I decided, you know, because I only have like 5 milligrams worth of a pro tab left of an indica pro tab, so I was like, I don't really want indica because it's gonna like knock me out. And at that point, I was like, I might still be productive. Like when I have hybrids in my system, I might actually do something like musical or like athletic in a way. Like I like dancing and like inside the house and like, you know, exercising a little like through dancing and yoga and stuff like that. So sometimes I like capoeira types of yoga fusion type exercises, and so I notice, and like other martial arts and stuff, and so I notice sometimes, you know, hybrids do kind of help me towards that, and so I was like, yeah, let me just get that in there and you know, use this hybrid, you know. So I went to the dispensary, got the usual Cushy Punch gummies, and then I saw this drink. It was like Jones brand. It was like orange cream soda or something. And there was a blue one, there was a green one, there was an orange one, and I decided for the orange one because there was only one left. So I was like, well, that must be the one that everybody likes then. So let me try that. And got one of those. Dropped by Nijiya Market, got some Japanese kind of deli groceries, a little bit of snacks, these like type of like veggie straw chips or something. And they weren't really veggie straws, not the same exact ones. They were like Japanese brand and a little different. Like I feel like they weren't like they tasted a little different than veggie straws, but that's probably the most similar I could compare it to if I had to like give an example of what they were like. And then but they were delicious. So I didn't even drink all of that soda. I drank most of it, but not all of it. I still have more left, but it's gonna be just sugar water now. And it kind of hurt my teeth with all that sugar. My teeth are still kind of like, my gums are still kind of feeling weird because of it. And I felt like they were maybe a little swollen in the back yesterday, but I don't really know for sure. But yeah, I'm not like that hard into like sugar products. But yeah. So that was just kind of where I went with that. And then like after that, I went and just had like a really basic what do you call it? Like just like a cannabis session, I guess, you know, and had some of the drink. I had like half of it at first, and then it kicked in, and I was like, it kicked in hard, man. And but it was good. It was in a really good way, and you know, maybe that's just what I needed. You know, I was able to relax and do some of a self-care routine, and you know, I wasn't really too much online talking to friends or anything. I was just kind of like in my head and just like really enjoying myself, like that. And then by like 10:30 or so, I had already been dozing off for a while by that point, and so you know, I made sure I didn't need any restroom breaks or anything. But before that, I ate like a bunch of chips. I ate those veggie chip things. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I ate quite a lot of them. And for dinner before that, I had, I guess it's oyakodon. I don't know what it is. I don't know the difference between the pork one and the chicken one, but it was basically like a pork cutlet with kind of like with some kind of scrambled egg omelet in there, a little bit of green onion, rice, um, the regular onions. Um, so I ate that last night. I don't know. I don't eat pork that much. It kind of got stuck in my teeth. Like, I'm not really into like pork, beef, that kind of thing. But the selections at Nijia were kind of sparse, and so I was like, let me just get what I'm gonna get, So yeah, that was kind of my night. And I was a little worried this morning because I woke up around 6. It's called 6:12, 6:20, somewhere around there. And I was like, dude, it's early, but I felt fine because I was like, this is the first time in a while I've woken up in the 6 zone instead of like in the 7 zone. Like I was like awake, but I was like also still feeling kind of maybe stoned. So I was like, dude, like I'm so tired. And it was kind of weird because like if I closed my eyes, I could go back to what I was dreaming like right away. Like I wasn't like fully like awake. Like I could kind of like choose my dreaming, it was kind of really odd. And that was early this morning, but I was like, let me just get up. Like I don't need to be in bed. So I decided to get up around 7:30 or so. I was just trying to get my mental energy kind of together. And then when I was like actively trying it, I noticed, okay, I'm not really stoned, I'm just like groggy. And so at first I thought I was like really stoned this morning, but it's just kind of like the after effects. So I started feeling pretty good, and then around 8-ish I had coffee and made some Ichiban ramen. I know that's not like the best of healthy meals, but like that's kind of what I wanted. I was like, let me just have something salty and high carb, first thing in the morning, like whatever, just something quick and hot. But before that, with my coffee, I put in a little bit of MCT oil, and it really pumped my energy up. Like pretty much all this morning, I've had like really high mental energy, like not stoned high, but like very increased mental energy compared to the other days. And I think a lot of it also is probably because I slept really good last night. I slept so good last night. Like I think I slept all the way through the night. Like I did wake up. I remember waking up a little bit because I usually have this beanie on. So I do remember like rolling over and being like, oh, the beanie isn't on anymore. But other than that, like yeah, I slept immaculately, and today I feel really great. But it's hard to tailor my energy. I'm like, I don't know if I want to use this energy more mentally or physically, and I'm not going to take more caffeine today, but yeah, I'm definitely having good energy. Like my brain is there's still a little bit of fog in there, but I'm pretty sure that's from the weed products. Like I slept pretty good though. But yeah, like every now and then it just helps. Like I know sometimes people are like really against cannabis and stuff, but it's like every now and then, it's not like I'm every day trying to like do this. And like I said, like Weed Wednesday is usually the day that I partake if I'm gonna have like a higher than normal dose of things. Then that's usually the day that I'll choose to do it, if not on a weekend. But yeah, I try not to get try not to get nothing, I try not to, like, I don't know, I find the benefits of it, and it really did relax me and help me actually just go to sleep. Like, I feel like for me, it works better than melatonin. Like, I feel better today than I felt all the other days before when I took melatonin for sleep. Like, I didn't take any melatonin last night, and I only had, THC, and I feel fine, this morning. Other than early this morning, like, early was a little hard, and I was just like, man, I'm probably just gonna. When I first woke up, I felt like I was just gonna sleep all day. I was like, and I don't usually sleep all day like that, but when I first woke up, I was like, ooh, this is gonna be a rough morning. So I was very shocked that by 8:30 a.m. I had already been kind of wiry for a couple minutes there, at least a little wired at least since then. And but yeah, there's still a little bit of fog, but nowhere near what it was the other days. And it's kind of a combination though, because I think cannabis helps, but then also the sleep helps, and then the coffee helps, and the MCT oil helps. So like the combination of things, I can't really say it was just one of the things, but yeah, definitely it's a necessity to sleep, and sleep early. Like, I slept early. I was asleep before 11 for sure. And I just did what I needed to do for myself yesterday. I didn't push too hard, and today I actually feel great. And it's Friday, so unfortunately I don't have too much today. Let me see when the sun sets. I have a sunset time that I follow Fridays, so my specific sunset time is 7:34 p.m. So 7:34 p.m. I'll be kicking myself off of, actually working on stuff, and I'll start to get a little bit more focused. I'll kick myself off from working on stuff, and I'll start to get a little bit more focused on I don't know. I'll just start to get a little bit more focused, basically. And yeah, so this morning, since that point, I'll be focused. Okay, like Friday nights, it's kind of more like the focus is more on like otherworldly things. So kind of just like nature, the universe. That's kind of where I like my mind to be Friday nights and Saturday daytimes. And I kind of just like overall disconnect from all the hustle of things. I try not to get too caught up in too much like negativity or too much, about the financial state of the world or world news or current events and all the kind of drama. I don't think about any business planning stuff. I don't study. I don't think about school, classes, nothing. Like, I just delve into this other part of things that kind of, it helps me reset a little bit better to do that. Otherwise, it's like all week just going with no. I feel like it helps me balance more, and otherwise all week I'll just be going without any form of like balancing those other kinds of areas of life. So yeah, so there's that. Yeah, and that's what I'm dealing with today. But yeah, pretty much this morning I paid someone on Fiverr. I got some marketing to do, and I'm having someone else help me with some parts of it that I'm not doing for social media marketing. And then I've got my online store that I need to tend to later on today as well. So I'll go get on that. After the podcasting stuff, and right now I'll just be at the beach with the pods. And then I'll probably fit in a little snack right about now. I've got that going right now. Either the choice of a perfect bar or some popcorn. Skinny pop, single bags of popcorn, like the snack size bags. I might have popcorn because I'm kind of sick of these perfect bars. I eat them so much. And then get some episodes up for today. I haven't posted any of my episodes yet for today. And then once I need a bathroom break, I'll head back home. The beach is not that sunny today. It's actually cloudy and foggy. And so I'm probably gonna stay here a while because it's not as hot. And I can kind of sit in the car and record a little bit more easily from here. So that's it for the day's daily update. And with that, thanks for listening.